This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is the leading source of audiobooks in the world. From bestsellers like Harry Potter to The Martian, or to the Heir to the Empire series by Timothy Zahn, a must-read for any Star Wars fan. And even books by some of the most well-known geeks in the world, like You're Never Weird on the Internet by Felicia Day, or you can listen to Ready Player One read by Will Wheaton, or you can even listen to Tim Ferriss read The 4-Hour Workweek and The 4-Hour Body. With over 180,000 titles to choose from and thousands more on the way, Audible is the go-to source for audiobooks. You can download them on your iPhone, iPad, Android device, and even Windows phones, as well as listen on your laptop. For a 30-day free trial of Audible, which gives you an instant +3 to intelligence, head over to www.audibletrial.com/sidequest and start your free trial today. Again, for a +3 to intelligence, head over to www.audibletrial.com/sidequest. Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. Listen in and level up. I have a great guest for you today on the show. I'll get into that in just a minute, but let's get through the house items first. If you're not following me on Twitter, check me out at SideQuest FM. You can also head over to Instagram and follow me over at Instagram again. Same handle, SideQuest FM. Head over to Facebook and like the Facebook page. Search for SideQuest Fitness and you can like the page there. Get updates on podcast episodes, articles, and all the shenanigans that I get into. Head over to Snapchat and follow me on Snapchat. I'm doing a lot with Snapchat. Still trying to figure the platform out and post photos and video of random things that I do throughout the day as well. You can find me there at SideQuest Fit, and you can also, I believe, search under Robbie Farlow and find it there as well. So follow me on Snapchat. If you have questions about anything health and fitness related, or you want to talk about like the comic book that you just read or a movie you just saw, like hit me up on Snapchat with anything. I answer all the snaps that I get. I'm also on a brand new social network. It's an audio social network called Anchor. Now, if you're an Android user, unfortunately, it is not out on Android yet, but if you're on iOS, check out Anchor. I'm going to be doing small little 90-second to 2-minute little mini podcast episodes over on Anchor that you can only get there. Search for me over there, SideQuest Fitness, or again, my name, Robbie Farlow, and you'll find me over there doing questions of the day, doing little random thoughts that I come up with, and having some fun over there. It's a great new, cool little community that is building up. But if you're on iOS, check out Anchor. Speaking of podcasts, my guest today is a brand new podcast host. He has 10 episodes out on the internet right now. When this episode goes up, he'll probably have his 11th or 12th up. But he has interviewed some amazing, amazing people so far. He is also a member of the Roman Fitness Systems Mastermind that I'm in. And he actually told me a couple months ago that I was an inspiration for him getting started on the podcast. Someone had asked me, how do you get started in a podcast? And all I said was pull your iPhone out and hit record. It's really that simple. And he did that. It was sort of a launching platform for him to get off his butt and finally do this podcast idea that he had. And he has been crushing it. The podcast is Resist Average Academy, hosted by Tommy Baker, who is my guest today. Tommy is a health and fitness coach living in Arizona, but he's been all over the world, trained with tons of people. He's lived in Colombia, Connecticut, New York City, Arizona. He's been all over the place. But he is one of the most enthusiastic and inspirational people I know. There are not a lot of people I know that have the energy throughout the day that Tommy has. When it comes to hitting a workout, the dude hits it 200%. When it comes to hosting a podcast, he asks great questions. His writing is fantastic, short, sweet, to the point, but full of knowledge and inspiration. We talk a lot in this episode about where he comes from, how living in two different parts of the world influenced him, how that was rough to change, going from one to the other. But we have a lot of fun in this episode. Before we head into the show, if you are looking to get into shape for the summer, or you finally want to conquer the nemesis that has been weight loss for you, head over to sidequestfitness.com, click on online coaching, and fill out the application there. I take about 5 clients a month, but I have a few more available opening up in April. So if you are looking to start your weight loss journey, your fitness quest, whatever it may be, head over to sidequestfitness.com/coaching and let's conquer your nemesis together. Now let's head into the show and hear from Tommy Baker of Tommy Baker Fitness and the Resist Average Academy podcast. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of SideQuest Podcast. As I mentioned in the pre-roll, I have a fantastic and energized and inspiring guest. Another gentleman that I met at the Roman Fitness Systems Mastermind that I am in, with tons of other guests that you've heard before previously. But Tommy Baker started his own podcast, and he told me I was a bit of an inspiration, which thank you. It means a lot. It's still weird when people say that I inspired them to do something, because I want to be like, oh, well, just keep doing what you're doing. That's cool. But he started his own show called Resist Average Academy, and he has had on some of the most amazing guests that I want to get on mine, but I'll wait a little while before I steal his guests. But Resist Average is fantastic. Tommy is one of the most inspiring and energized human beings I've ever met. I don't think I've seen him frown. Like, I mean, it's possible maybe with some brand new or some dashboard playing that, like, you might see a sad face, but I've not seen this guy frown yet. But he's so full of energy and life. He has fantastic writing that he does, and he's just an amazing person to be around. So I want to welcome you to the show. Tommy Baker, welcome to the show.
Wow, that's a big time intro, man. I mean, you put a lot in there, inspiration, some emo. I mean, that was a really one of the best intros I've had. And the reason people are like, why do you listen to that type of music? And it fuels me. It fuels me every day, and it's it brings back a lot of memories. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and embrace the fact that you were an inspiration, because you made it happen, man. You never know what's one person's message or something you say or do. That's why content is so powerful. You never know how it's going to affect someone.
It's true. I think it's. Do you find that when people say, "Man, you're an inspiration," like at first, and I know you've been in the business for a little while, did you find it hard to sort of be like, "Oh, okay, cool," like, because it still feels weird, especially like my friends from college, because I'm like, guys, I was drinking High Life and wearing a blazer, and like, you guys know how stupid I was. Like, what?
Well, those are actually those messages that you get from those people. To me, are special because they've seen your complete evolution. Yeah. And a lot of times the people that like from high school and college and stuff that have seen your whole evolution, and then they message her and they're like, dude, because of you, I'm now working out 4 times a week. Because of you, I did this. Those are almost like even more special than the random strangers because of the evolution that they were able to see. And I really appreciate those in a big way.
Yeah, it is sort of weird at first, especially when it's an ex-girlfriend. Those
are always awkward. I could see it being weird at first. It's like, do you remember at least the first time I heard myself on, I've done a lot of content creation with, videos and public speaking and stuff, but the first time you hear yourself maybe on a podcast, you're like, oh man, it's just like you start criticizing yourself and all that. But, and obviously you notice stuff that no one else does, but it's part of and it's a blast.
Yeah. I noticed that. I listened to the first couple of episodes just to see quality and whatnot when I started, and I was like, oh God.
Cringing. My first one I thought was awful. I mean, I thought it was horrible. And I shared it with someone and I was like, this was so bad. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I am confident that I've gotten better. So, but that first one is always weird. So I want to ask you about that. So the first question you ask a lot of your guests, because your show is the Resist Average Academy, and you always ask them, what does resist average mean to you? So Tommy, what does resist average mean to Tommy Baker?
Nice. I like that. Turn the tables. That's really cool, man. To me, it's 100% what happens in between your ears on a daily basis, and it's really a daily choice, right? It's about the way you decide to show up in the world, and we all have these voices outside of us, but mainly the ones inside of us. Everybody has insecurities, doubts, fears. and stories that we play in our heads that hold us back from what I call achieving greatness. And the people that listen to those stories and take them at face value, to me, those are the average people. And the people that acknowledge the voices and smile at them and laugh at them, but still take action and persist despite in spite of those, I call is my definition of resist average.
How did you start? At what point did you start to realize you could resist average? Were you always resisting average, like as a young adult, as a teen, as you got into the world of fitness and entrepreneurship, or did you have to have a moment where you were just like, no, fuck mediocrity, I'm done with this, I'm gonna give it my all?
Hell yeah, man, that's a great question. To be honest, it happened in childhood, man. I grew up in two completely different places. I mean, most people don't even know because I don't really look that way. But I grew up in South America, in Colombia, and I grew up you couldn't have two more different places. So one was a capital city in Colombia, Bogota, which is known for extreme violence, drugs, and all that stuff, which a lot of it is untrue. But still, growing up in that place where you seeing people with military with Uzis all over the place is quite different than growing up in the suburbs of Connecticut. So just that going back and forth and never really feeling like I was fitting in. When you move a lot during childhood, it's like it can be very tough on you. And sometimes I would totally fit in with the culture, and then other times I wouldn't because in those two places people grow up differently. So that at a young age, I just felt like a little bit misunderstood, to be honest. Sometimes awkward as well. Had a lot of, especially growing up as in middle school and then into high school. Like those were tough times. And but I felt like there was always something more as I was growing up, and even in high school and college, I was always hanging around kind of older people, and my best friends even to this day are at least 5 to 7 years older. And I just feel like that level of maturity and asking deeper questions is something I've always been attracted to.
So you grew up in Columbia and Connecticut. Was it split like even? Like what? When did you move? Were you born in Connecticut and then it's split? I want to know more about that story. It's
cool, yeah. And I appreciate you asking about it. No, I was born in Columbia and I was there until birth till age 5. Came to the States, and then after age 5, it was basically every 2 years we were going back and forth, give or take. So that's why it was very tough because you just get very attached to your surroundings and your friends, and then you get pulled up and you're in a completely different culture. And in your mind, you're thinking, okay, kids grow up the same. The 8-year-olds in the States is going to be the same 8-year-old in Colombia, and many times that wasn't the case. So, but again, that brought, even though for me it was a challenge, it brought a lot of gifts. I'm completely bilingual. Obviously, I can go to Colombia and not get scanned by the cab drivers because once they get past my white skin, they realize I am actually Colombian, and so it gave me that kind of bicultural learning, and it gave me perspective, man. I mean, I grew up in one of the places that I grew up with people making jokes about where I grew up in terms of drugs and all that stuff, and that kind of hardened me because I always felt like I had to protect my pride, and Colombia feels just as home as the States does. So it was a great experience.
So you mentioned the word pride, and that sort of immediately brought something to mind. A lot of times in life, whether we're going through something, whether it's an obstacle, whether it's a goal, whatever, our pride seems to be the one thing that always holds us back. And many times that is what it keeps us being average. So how do you help clients, break down their own pride that is keeping them from being, exceptional or great?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, a lot of it comes down, especially to in fitness, is if you come through. I used to have a couple of gyms back east, so I use the analogy like if you came through the door to see me, then I hope you're humble enough to know that you don't have any, you need help in this area of life. Like you coming through the door is asking for help, and when you ask for help, you immediately have to reduce your pride, and you have to be open to receive, and you have to be vulnerable and all this stuff. And that's really like the first step for me to make any progress in any area of life, is to get honest about where you are today. Because we have a really great way. Our minds are funny things that I've studied them for a while. We have a really great way of rationalizing where we are in life and saying that it's really not that bad and living in this comfort place. But in the context of fitness, for example, when you walk through the door, that action. You had to, research the gym. You had to look on Yelp. You had to Google. Maybe you did all this stuff, all these actions to get in. And I know people coming in are usually very just walking in. But at that moment, we got to get rid of the pride. We got to get to the real. And that's why, I say, the quality of your life is based on the quality of questions you ask. When I was sitting in front of a prospect that was coming in, I had to learn how to ask really great questions. Past that surface area BS that people in fitness, spew at us, and really get at the core of the why that they were trying to fix.
Yeah, I think that's asking very good questions is something you do really well on your podcast, and something that I think any podcast host, anyone who does a sort of interview podcast, has to get really good with asking better questions. So, what sort of resources did you use? I know you're a big reader, and I got some questions on books later, but how did you get really good at asking questions that were out of the box?
Yeah, man, by not being good at it, seriously, by just being poor at it, growing up. I never thought my communication skills were great because I grew up in this bicultural way. So I really had to practice social intelligence. I had to practice how to ask great questions. It's funny now as a podcaster, I don't know if you get this. I'll be in conversations out in at a coffee shop or at a bar or on a date or something, and I'll see myself starting to kind of podcast, turn the conversation into a podcast of sorts, and I have to make sure I stop myself. But the real answer to it these days is preparation, man. Like when I have a guest on my show, I literally engulf myself in who that person is. I listen to every single podcast that they've been on. For example, I had Mike Vacanti on, and he was on your podcast. So I listened to that whole episode.
Oh, that was woo! That was one of those first ones. I'm still trying to get him to come back on the damn show. And he swears that he answers text messages and Snapchat, but he hasn't answered my 2 requests yet. So Mike, if you're listening, get on the show.
Yeah, I know. I'm always sending him snaps about emo music, and his responses are here and there. But yeah, man, preparation with questions and just working on it, conversational skills and podcasting. It's all practice, right? I mean, I've noticed from episode 1 to episode 15, which I'm at right now, huge gains. I'm sure you have as well, and that's what it's about. Like whether it's fitness, whether it's podcasting, whether it's guitar, whatever you want to work on, it takes that dedicated practice.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be Michael Jordan the day you step on a court to play basketball. You're going whatever you start doing. Now you may have some natural tendencies and some skills, initially that you're just born with. But to make those really good, you've got to practice. And sometimes, like my dad told me growing up, sometimes you got to work harder than everyone else because it's not natural to you. You have the potential, but it's not a trait you're born with. But you just got to keep crafting it. And I think that applies, as you said, to fitness. It applies to podcasting, business, anything. That you're pursuing in life, especially talking to women. I was really awful at that for a long time.
So it's a practice, right? The more you do it, and the more the more times you get into those awkward pauses and the silences and get rejected, that just fuels you, and you just become better at it. And then you start practicing the power of touch, and it's always a journey with any skill,
Yeah. So I was reading through some of your stuff, and you had a great post where you're talking about choice, and we're sort of talking about, conversation here and where you can go and choosing to be good or choosing to be average. I think we all have choices. And as a big giant video game nerd myself, that's what, most video games I grew up playing taught me, the power of choice. You can go this way or you can go that way. But now as games have gotten better, how the choices you make can actually affect the outcome of the game. Which is huge, because that's the way life is. You can go this path, you can go that path. You can say this thing or you can say that thing, but it could affect a relationship that you build or a relationship that you destroy. And of course, a lot in the gray as well. But when it comes to the power of choice, why is it so hard to make a different choice? And where do you struggle when it comes to choosing? As you said, you were flipping around this idea in your head of doing a podcast, and then I said, I don't know, I just hit record and started, and you were like, all right, fine.
Totally. Well, choice, it's I think a lot of times, the first thing is like people are unaware of the simple fact that they have the power to choose, right? Like let's say that the typical client that I used to work with on the East Coast was 35 to 50, had basically built their career and built their family, but really forgotten their physical body, and we're trying to get back into that. And it was their wife and kids for their fitness, their job, their boss, all this stuff. And when you blame, you lose the power to change. And therein comes the choice. Like, they made the choice to focus on their career and family. I'm not judging. Nobody's judging. Not good or bad. That was the choice that they made, right? Just like now when they came to see me at my gym, they made a new choice. Now I'm on my physical body and fitness. So, every single day, it sounds so cliche, but we have a blank canvas at our disposal. I don't take any day for granted, and every day we have a choice on how we're going to choose up and show up in the world. And like the way that the things that I use to help me to achieve clarity in the choices that I make is my morning routine, my morning rituals, and all that stuff.
That's actually very, very huge. I've been working on restarting a morning ritual. When I had a morning client at 6, it was a little rough getting up at 5 to like read for a little while, because by the time my coffee hit, it was like 5:20, and I was like, oh, I got to eat breakfast, and then like I got to go train my client, then I got to train myself, and then I got to train a couple other people. Like, it just it was hard. But now that I'm not in the gym at 6, I'm able to read and do some more things. My wife was gone for a week, and I made my bed. I feel like I've never gotten more work done in my life than by making my bed. Which is
that's the first step, right? Because you start your day with positive action. So, most people wake up, and this happens to me from time to time, not as often, but most people wake up and it's like negative thought, right? Like, I don't want to get up. I don't, my boss, this, weather, and then. But the alarm goes off and they hit the snooze. So they're training their mind to not take action, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's no wonder that when it's 3 p.m. and they have this chaotic event in their relationship, well, they're not going to have the hard conversation, because they've trained their mind since the morning not to take action. So even just making your bed, there's a commencement speech about this, and I think there's a book about it as well. That making your bed is sets off the momentum of events that are going to push you to create momentum and have action in the rest of your life. So it's like you wake up, you choose to wake up immediately, you brush your teeth, you make your bed, you go through this routine, and by the time it's 7 a.m. or whatever it is, you've already taken like 20 actions that are moving you forward in life. That's a pretty damn good feeling.
Yeah, it is. Which is, for a lot of people, I lived for the longest time hitting the snooze button.
Sure, we all have.
Button. But getting up to one thing I tell clients, and I try to tell friends, just if the first thing you do all day, even if it's not making your bed, I mean, if that's a big hurdle for you, fine. Do something positive for you in the first 30 minutes of the day. Something that whether it's reading a book, whether it's crocheting, whether it's sitting down and playing, something that adds value to your life. If you can start by adding value to your life immediately in the day, then you're going to set a precedent for the rest of the day to continue adding value and continue doing positive things. If you start your day stumping your toe and saying, fuck today, then you're just going to be mad all day.
And I love that, man. I love it. You the way you put it, for you, it can be whatever you want, but something for you, whatever your highest interests and values are, and something that makes you feel good, is going to might look very different than you and I, but that's a great piece of advice right there.
Because I think so many of us, and especially as entrepreneurs, and I'm changing this on my email, so if any clients are listening, 5:30 a.m. will be changed on when I check my email, because I'm going to push it a little later in the morning, because I want to do something for myself. I need to read more. I have a goal that every Friday now, to my email subscribers, I'm sending out the Friday High Five, which is just like 5 awesome things that happened that week, like what I'm reading, what I'm playing, what I'm listening to, where I've written, just sort of like a 5-bullet thing, of what's going on in life. But
I love it, man.
I've told them I'm going to read, and if I don't post the book in here, I want you guys to keep me accountable. Like, I need you to keep me accountable because I need to read more. I need to expand my mind and become smarter. Go ahead.
What time are you checking email right now?
Right now, right after I read, which I'm a very slow reader, so I'm usually done by 5:45.
Wow, that's too early to check email, man.
I know. I know. Yes, it is too early to check email. I agree, which is why I'm pushing that time back. So I'm gonna.
All right, good. We'll hold you accountable, man. I'm telling you, like, even when I had my businesses back east, I fought tooth and nail not to check email, and then my phone is on airplane mode. So I go as long as I can every morning without shifting airplane mode off, which sometimes can be, 7 a.m., 8. Sometimes if I'm really good that day, it can be 9. But what it does for my ability to create and have clarity is so unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's anyone who's sort of an artist or a creator. The first thing, and I saw this in the corporate world, and man, I'm so glad. Like, I'm so glad I'm out of that. And I don't, anyone who's listening while you sit at a corporate job, I don't ever want to demean a job that you do. But it killed my soul. And I saw so many executives go on vacation with their phones and checking email. They were sending emails at like 5:30 in the morning. Like, that's the first thing they're doing. And it puts you in a reactive state. And immediately, instead of doing something positive for yourself, because there are times, and Tommy, you wrote about this, we can talk about it, where you need to be selfish. It's okay to be selfish. And to take time for yourself or your family or do something just for you that adds benefit to your life first thing in the morning is going to make your life just enormously better later on down the line. If all you're doing is getting up and reacting to email, you immediately are stressed and worried, and that cortisol is right up here. It's always going to be up here, and you're never going to be able to get it back down.
And I don't even think it's okay to be selfish. I think it's absolutely essential to be selfish. And I used to tell this to my clients all the time. To me, really life starts with your physical body. So, if you can't take care of yourself and train and eat the right nutrients and feel good and have vitality and all that stuff, like, how does that change the way you show up with your kids? Mm-hmm. What's the quality of the relationship that you're going to have with your wife and kids if you are not connected to your own body? So it's the power of them coming into my gym and, hey, dude, and these were big dogs. One of the guys was top 3 at ESPN, another was MTV, all this stuff. But I forced them to turn off their phones and give me about 75 minutes of just them time and not worry about anyone else, because if they invested that time in themselves, then the time that they would be with other people was going to be at least 2 or 3x.
I'm glad to hear that you were taking phones away and turning it off. I've been failing at that with someone very close who has asked me to turn my phone off. She's probably smiling right now as she hears me say this. But it's
tough, man. It's tough.
It is, because what I do doesn't feel like work. I like answering questions. I told you before we got on, I had a client who I was training today at the Y, and she was like, I've lost 10 pounds in a month, working with you. And I haven't been losing weight the last year with, who I was working with previously. Like, I don't know what your magic is, but you're amazing. And I love doing that stuff. It doesn't feel like work. It's not like I don't wake up and cry. Like, I cannot tell you, Tommy, how many times I woke up last year and wept in the kitchen, like tears going into my salad for lunch that day because I had to go to somewhere I didn't want to go to.
Wow,
because
that's amazing, man. Good for you, man. That's amazing. Just hearing that transformation, is just so powerful, man.
Yeah,
and now your level of gratitude right now, it's like you can just hear it because you've been somewhere that you were just stuck, and now that you're not, you're just, it changes the way your energy and your vitality, man. It's badass.
Yeah. Like I said, start the day by doing something positive for you, and it'll set a precedent that will carry over. All right, so another article you wrote, I love this because we've been talking a little bit about it, and you mentioned being selfish and that it's essential. But another thing you find very essential is being curious and passionately curious. So real quick, what does passionately curious mean to you? Like, when I say passionately curious, what does that mean?
Man, it means that every time you have a conversation with a stranger, it means every time you're exposed to a movie, anytime you know take the same ride home from work, like to be open. You know, we kind of design our lives in routine, and we expect every day to be the same. And with that expectation, we start to close ourselves off from opportunity, right? So to me, it's always, instead of looking down on our phones, which, even if, you might be at Trader Joe's and there's a 2-second wait, everybody goes down to their phone, when if you look up, you see the vastness of this world, man. I mean, I live in Arizona, dude. I mean, I got mountains of inspiration all over me, but even when I was in Connecticut, man, I would look up at the stars at night and just kind of wonder and reconnect to my inner child, which I think is, I don't have kids or anything, but I have a lot of friends who do. And, they're always asking why and why does this happen? And I love that, man, because it's a thirst for knowledge that can't be quenched.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big proponent of sticking with your inner child. And there are times where, I'm like, oh, I guess I got to be professional because I got a business. No, I fight with that. But reconnecting to that inner child is very important. So how do you do that? How do you connect? Is that where your energy comes from, Tommy? Because you are literally like the most enthusiastic person I've ever met in my life.
That's awesome. I love that. That title, dude. Really badass. It does, man. It does. And it's connected to gratitude, man. And it's connected to, like I said earlier, man, I mean, I literally wake up every day and I say thank you. And it sounds cliche and it might sound spiritual and new agey, but like we take so much crap for granted, man. I mean, every time I take a plane, and people are complaining about the plane and the lines and, the tight spaces, I'm like, do you know what you're saying right now? We can literally travel anywhere in the world, get there in a few hours on an aluminum tube, and you're complaining. You're finding the negative in every situation. So for me, it's always about just being curious and asking questions. And I think people forget like the miracle that is life without getting too deep. If you look at our cells right now, there's so much amazing crap happening. There's cells are building and destroying. The fact that we can see and speak and hear, I mean, people just take this for granted. So that's where my enthusiasm comes from, because I don't feel like I will ever, the gratitude that is connected to that is so deep it makes every experience in life, even if it's painful, it can make it makes it all worthwhile.
Okay. So practicing gratitude is something that,
we just went deep. I just went like deep.
you did, but because I wanted to ask you, what are you most passionately curious about? But I think you sort of answer that in saying basically everything in life. Like you're curious, you want to question things, you want to look at things, you want to be grateful and that you have all these amazing experiences. I mean, you live in Arizona, you're right. You can fly from Arizona to New York within a few hours. If you were to be on a horse and buggy, if there is one thing you want to do when you drive across the West, it's imagine what it would be like crossing Texas, New Mexico, or Arizona with a horse and a buggy, where you see a mesa that driving is 8 hours. Imagine a horse and buggy, how long that would take you to get there in hot heat with no rain and no river.
And yet we complain about the seats on an airplane being too small. Like, come on, man. I just had a podcast, man. I had a podcast with a guy who was in South Africa. And, it just, technology, I mean, we just take everything, we get frustrated when our phones don't work just right and, all this stuff. And to answer your question about what I'm most passionately curious about, it's outer space, man. It's the cosmos, it's science, it's all the stuff that's happening every single day. It's the fact that the sun rose today and how that happened. And I'm kind of a nerd because I like to read about quantum physics and how that connects with all this other stuff. And
yes,
again, I know that's the curiosity factor. Like no one cares about what's going on, in our galaxy right now. And it's amazing, mind-boggling stuff that if you just actually read about it, you'll just be in complete awe, and it'll change the way you see the world.
Yeah, well, it's even more mind-boggling that sometimes what you're seeing actually happened millions of years ago. You're just seeing it now. It's like, what?
Mind blowing, man.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, if there's some alien on a planet somewhere that's gonna, like, millions of years from now, gonna be like, there's this weird blue planet with this, like, weird thing going on. We got to get there, but we've already. Yeah, it's crazy.
Hell yeah.
So cool. So I read Seth Godin's Linchpin, and you had that up as one of your, like, go-to books to read.
Hell yeah.
And it meant a lot to me because he talked a lot about being an artist, having a theater background, being an actor, coming from that. It's something that someday I will return to. I just love what I'm doing right now. Like, nothing fuels me more than doing what I'm doing. I guess maybe I should go to Atlanta and be like, yo, what's up? Yo, listen, biceps, make me a superhero. Let's do this, Marvel. All right? I trained them. Now let's make me a real one.
Yes.
Except there's no, like, redheaded superhero that I can think of.
Hey, we can make that happen, man.
We could totally make it. We could totally make it.
If you can imagine it, it can happen.
So how are you, Tommy? How are you an artist?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. The amazing part of Linchpin is that for a while I didn't think I was an artist, but reading Linchpin, reframe my mind to know. And for anyone out there, like Robbie said, if you're in an office and you have a job that you don't like right now, you can still be an artist. And to answer your question, the way I'm an artist is, the way I communicate my message, which is through writing, speaking, videos, and really inspiring my clients to see the world a little bit differently through things that I've learned and experienced, and opening up the possibility, whether it's in the context of fitness, which represents half my clients, or the context of just their lifestyle, which represents the other half.
All right. So speaking of books, because as I'm reading through your posts, you read a lot, and we've already sort of dived on me reaching out to my email list and saying, hey guys, I'm going to put a book in here every week that I'm reading. If I don't, you guys can throw pie in my face or something. I don't know how you throw pie across the internet, but I have some local people that could totally throw pie in my face. How many books do you read a week? Because I know last year you read 40, so that's just under one a week.
Last year I crushed it, man. I read 40, and some of them I read twice. Right this year I'm on a way slower pace. I would say I'm reading one every 2 weeks right now.
Okay.
So I'm probably on pace for about 25, give or take. This year I've kind of slowed it down because I'm doing a little bit less textbook reading, and I'm doing more, physical copy reading and more audiobooks. Although I only count in my reading if I read them, with real paperback and all that stuff.
So how many audiobooks have you listened to? If you throw that into the mix.
Those are countless. Well, what I do is I listen to them on 3x speed a lot of times, or 2x speed depending on the day. But audiobooks, I mean, I could easily get through probably one every 2 days or one a day.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of it I'll repeat, right? Like, perfect day for me, though, when I was getting ready for Craig's episode, I repeated that 3 or 4 times. And another book I'm reading now called Deep Work, about being, focused, undistracted work. It's my second go around. And especially the powerful ones, I really want to get those into my subconscious. So I'll play those time and time again. And it won't be totally focused. Sometimes I'll be driving. Sometimes I'll be training, whatever it may be. But I want to imprint that into my mind.
Okay. I know there's a lot of people that listen to it at like 1.5x and 2x as well. I haven't done that yet because I guess for me, I sort of like, I'm a very visual person in my brain. Like, I'm very good at creating a story and like making it a movie, which is why, like, for many books, I like to read it first before it becomes a movie. I failed at Harry Potter with that. So now, like, I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I mean, Snape, his only voice is, that's the end of it. Like, now these characters are who they were in the film. I want to try that. All right, so let's get back to it. We brought it up when you first got on about listening to emo bands. Let's geek out a little bit on our mutual love.
My specialty right here
of indie emo music, as they called it in the early 2000s. Who's the most underrated emo band in your opinion?
Wow, that is an amazing question. Underrated emo band? Man, I gotta say, Alkaline Trio, man. They always seem to never be in like the top lists of bands, but if you look at their career, I mean, they're still around, which is unbelievable. Matt Skiba now is part of Blink 182, so they have even more relevance. But I mean, Alkaline Trio was a band that like almost few people can craft a song the way those guys can. So I consider them highly, highly underrated.
Okay, I that's a good call. That's a good call.
Did you ever get into them?
Oh yeah. Of course, okay. I got into Alkaline Trio. Sorry, I was thinking of some other bands that I wanted to bring up. So who was your first, like, who got you into it? That's what I want to know. Like, because for me, my good friends that I had in high school had a lot of different social circles, but I think the first one I really got into was Taking Back Sunday, because Adam Lazaria, the lead singer, went to our high school for 2.5 years, and then dropped out, moved to Jersey, and became the lead singer of Taking Back Sunday. And his family still lived in North Carolina, so it was kind of cool for us to be like, yeah, man, rock stars totally can come from a small town in North Carolina.
Hell yeah!
So Taking Back Sunday was sort of my first, and then of course, everything else. I guess you would count Weezer, then maybe Weezer was the first, but anyways, beyond that, I mean, the next, Dashboard to Brand New to Sunny Day Real Estate. I mean, I went deep with a lot of my friends. Thursday I loved, The Used, Texas Is the Reason. I mean, I could go on for days with tons of these. One of my favorites, and a lot of people don't know, was Pedro the Lion. He's a little, yeah. Really.
That's a deeper cut for sure.
Really, really, really good stuff. So who got you into it?
Yeah, man, I actually remember perfectly. I had just come back to the States, and we were going, I don't know how old I think it was, I know the album, it was Newfound Glory's Nothing Gold Can Stay. I think it was released in 1998 or something like that. So I would have been, 13, something like that. But yeah, I remember hearing that. I remember hearing that in my friend's car, and it was like a whole new world had come into my life. And I made him burn me a CD of that album, and I listened to that time and time and time again. And that just opened the doors on an obsession that has never been cured. I thought as I grew up, I was like, okay, like, I'm finally going to grow up and get, this music is not going to be relevant to me anymore. And that just never happened. And then finally, and then I was almost like embarrassed. I'm like, man, I'm like the only one in my circle listening to this music still. And I was almost afraid to like admit it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to embrace that, man. I love this stuff. It makes me feel like, again, it reminds me of those trips to the beach. It reminds me of the awkwardness of, high school and even college. And that type of music is near and dear to my heart.
It is to me as well, which is, again, one of the reasons that, like, when I picked up Alpha, I was like, oh my God, John Romanello. He loves superheroes and he listens to emo music. I'm not alone in this world. Like, immediately gravitated to everything that he wrote. But it's interesting because you listen to a lot of those bands, and now a lot of them have grown up as they've gotten older, which you can tell from Taking Back Sunday. Their albums are very different. If you don't know about the whole, if you're a listener and don't know, just look Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, the whole split. The whole there's a lot of interesting things that went on with those two bands, but everyone sort of matured and some people sort of stayed for a while and then it sort of died out. But you listen to a lot of that older stuff and it doesn't sound like inspirational music. It's about heartache, unrequited love. It's about dad issues and this and like it's about things that like. It's angsty teenager music, but how does that still reconnect with you if you're such an inspiring and passionate person? How does it inspire you?
It's amazing, man, because I actually, my perception is completely different. I extract amazing lessons of inspiration from some of this music. And you'd be surprised, I've actually thought about starting a blog where I combine personal development and emo lyrics. And I'm not even kidding, because there's so much powerful shit in some of these lyrics that I still listen to it these days. And I'll be in the car and I'll be like, that line to me just inspired the rest of my day. So to answer your question, I think it's perception. Obviously, it depends on the band and certain albums that they came out with at the time. But dude, that stuff inspires me For example, Jimmy Eat World is, to me, is one of the most inspirational bands. I mean, you listen to a song off, an album like Bleed America, and there's a song called a praise chorus, and he talks about taking action. Like the whole front of the song is about taking action. Now, yes, he's talking about taking action in terms of going up to that girl, but that's a lesson that you can, to me, the resistance you feel, with a cute chick at a coffee shop is the same resistance you feel when you're going to launch your business. It's all the same thing, just a different form. So stuff like that inspires the hell out of me.
I love that. And I see that for me, it's the music. Like I can let the lyrics go a little bit, though, the Taking Back Sunday lyric has always, in my opinion, been the greatest love lyric ever written. The truth is, I'd never lie to you. You could slit my throat, and with my one last dying breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on your shirt. I just felt like that was the most epic way to say I love you ever, which is why that's always been one of my favorites. But it's always been the music for me. Like I put on Brand New, and something about it wakes up something inside of me that it pours out emotionally.
Me too.
And it allows my heart to sort of flow. And maybe I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm a big softie. I'm not going to lie. I'm a huge hopeless romantic, and maybe that's the sort of music that does it for me. But even music, there's a great song. It's the last song on Catfish and the Bottlemen. If you've not listened to that album, it's so good.
I haven't.
But the last song of that, there's this great sort of like epic just guitar riff, and sort of the drums start building, and it feels like a fight, like an epic fight inside. And music like that, to me, it's like inside my emotions get to battle each other out, and what comes out, what the blood from that battle is what pours out on the page. God, that's the most emo thing I could have ever said.
To me, it sounds so normal, though. It's awesome. I mean, dude, like, I was just sprinting this morning, and that beginning riff to Quiet Things No One Ever Knows. Like, that I could hear that at any time, any day. I could be having the most exhausting day, and I hear that intro riff. And maybe it's like this youthful energy that it brings out of me. I don't know what it is, and I love the music as well, but that gets me going like nothing else. And so to me, it's all the things, man. It's the reminders of youth, and to me, it's about never losing that youthful spirit. It's the lyrics, and it's also just the energy, man. Like the raw energy and the emotion, which I feel like as a society, it's like we make fun of people who show emotion, but to me, that a complete man, for example, has a high degree of being real and vulnerable. Like that's part of the experience, man. So our love for this type of music is quite similar, and it's always fun.
I mean, I'm a lover of all music. I have to make a slight confession. I was when Tanner Bays and I were driving to Austin, this song came on the radio, and I was like, oh, all right, that's a cool lyric. Like, I love you, but my mama doesn't love you. Like, okay, like I can see how. And then you're laughing because you probably know what it is.
Purpose, yeah.
Yep. And then I see the name scroll across like the rental car, and I'm like, no, right. I cannot like this song. I hate myself for liking this song. And I was like,
that's classic.
Dang it! Now I like a Justin Bieber song. Now I like a song from a guy I thought I would never like. But damn,
that's epic. Let me. Emo alternative show you've ever been to?
What's the most emo alternative show I've ever been to?
Oh no, like the best.
All right. I mean, I went to a Warped Tour once. Does that really count? Probably not. But Taking Back Sunday was there. Story of the Year was there. Yellow Card was there. Coheed and Cambria was there. From Autumn to Ashes was there. It was an epic show. Honestly, one of my best, and they're not really emo, but at the time I was going through my first like college breakup. And writing some very emo-ish songs. I went to see Everclear at a very, very small space in North Carolina, outside of Chapel Hill, and it was amazing. Like, it was one of the most fun shows I'd ever been to. I bet. Yeah, for me at that moment, it was really connecting because of some things on that album. And they were one of my favorite bands growing up from the 90s because they were like a rock band that were like, we're going to play the G chord and everything and find a unique way to like write rock music with just a G chord and then take off a finger and then a G chord. Like,
hell yeah.
It was so simple. They weren't complicated.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's get into some fun questions because these are my favorite. These are my favorite. Where would you go in a time machine? If you could go anywhere, Tommy, where would you go in a time machine?
Wow. This is pretty. I could go forward. I could go back.
Anywhere.
I could go anywhere.
Anywhere in a time machine. The DeLorean has no it goes wherever you want it, as long as you got 1.21 gigawatts.
That's badass, man. I would honestly go to the year 3000, man, because I would want to see that new. I would want to see what that looks like.
Okay, would you stay if you had the choice to come back and it was really, really badass? Would you stay?
I would not come back if it was really badass.
What if you went to the future, Tommy, and Tommy Baker had become like the new Marcus Aurelius? Like, how would you conceptualize that?
That would be insane, man. Marcus Aurelius is like my homeboy, man. I want to get his fucking face tatted on my forearm for real, man. I met him in Paris, aka I saw his statue at the Louvre, and I was just like blown away. But man, that would be crazy. But I would probably stay. All
right. If you could be an animal on a carousel, what animal would you be and why?
These are epic questions, bro. I would be a snow leopard if I was an animal on a carousel, and that's because snow leopard is my favorite animal. They're almost impossible to find. There's not that many left, and I have one tattooed on my arm, so why not?
All right, I like it. So we talked music, but this is a question I've not asked in a while, but I got to know. What is your guilty pleasure track on your workout mix that you would shamefully admit to others you listen to?
Oh, so easy, man. Nicki Minaj, Super Bass. That song is just so epic, man. I love it. I'll actually, during some of my hardest workouts, including intense prowler sprints, and I go pretty really intense in the gym in terms of my mindset. I mean, I just go nuts. I feel like I'm going to war, but at my peak intensity, I'll put on that song, man, and it makes me go even harder. It's great. It's guilty pleasure, but I've also posted about it a lot on Facebook and whatnot.
I will be honest. Greg Knuckles had it right. If you squat to Katy Perry, dude, firework. All of a sudden, like you're in the bottom of that squat, but as soon as that chorus comes on, you're like, you're damn right, I'm a firework. And
Hell yeah,
yeah,
hell yeah, man.
All right, you're in the finals for the International Air Guitar Championships. What song do you play to take home the crown?
Wow. I would say Bush, Machine Head.
Yeah.
That was one of the first albums that I literally, like, when I was young, I remember going in my room, I sat down, I opened the lyric sheet, and I just immersed myself. And I'll always love that first album that they came out with called 16 Stone.
Oh, yes.
Dude, Machine Head.
Dude, 16
epic air guitar.
16 Stone was a great that little era with right in that era you had, Smashing Pumpkins. Well, I would argue their second album was their best, more than Melancholy. But in that sort of era, right there, you had STP at their height. You had Smashing Pumpkins at their height. Bush was coming in. You had Green Day before Green Day sold out and became awful. I can't do it. It's Billy Joe stopped making me feel empathetic, and he now stands on a soapbox.
When was the last album that you really got into? When was the last album that you really got into?
The last one I liked was American Idiot, but even in American Idiot, I could hear it. Like, you could hear it was like, okay, I'm a famous rock star now. I'm going to go really poppy. I'm going to sell myself out. But now I'm going to start telling you how it should be, how instead of making you feel. Now, I liked the concept that it was a rock opera. It's been a while since we had a band that did that, and I appreciated that fact. But that next album, I was like, yep. There it is. They've jumped the shark.
Totally. American Idiot was so mind-blowing at the time, but I can't even go back and really listen to that. Besides that one song that's, there's one track that I can still listen to, but I totally, and after that, I kind of moved on from them. But for what it was at the time, at that moment, it was a powerful album and great to see them go on a creative limb. However, I totally get what you're saying in terms of their kind of artistic integrity and where they were headed after that.
Yeah, I don't mind artists expanding and trying new things. And you have to do that. I mean, you can't, as much as I love the Dave Matthews Band, like they can't write Under the Table and Dreaming for the rest of their career. Like they've got to do other things. But I'm just not a fan of the last like 2 albums. Like, come on, like, But it's to each their own. I obviously maybe need to give it more of a chance. But all I got to say is this. The Foo Fighters have never disappointed. They've always come out. They've done something new. They've rocked it. They were like, we're going to go old school and record in a garage on analog. And it was amazing.
Yeah, it's always fascinated me, as in music, the whole, do you stay the same? Like, for example, a band like Alkaline Trio has done this basically the same thing, for 15, 20 years. Whereas a band like Brand New, none of their albums, I mean, you could give a stranger each of their albums and they would think it's a completely different band.
Right.
So to me, it's very interesting how bands manage that in terms of their own artistic and creative endeavors, as well as their fans and the business of the whole thing. Because, dude, Brand New could have struck out with one of these albums completely. And I know, like, knowing those guys, they would have gave 0 fucks. But another band, might have cared about that more. So to me, that fine line is always super interesting.
Yeah, it is. And as things always change, it becomes hard because you want to make money. You want to continue to do this. You don't want to have to break up and not tour. Yeah, man. Now there's so many bands. I just want to be like, Tommy, let's talk bands all day long. But let's get back. A couple more fun questions before I wrap up the show. If you could write a note to your younger self, what would you say in only 2 words?
Keep dreaming.
Keep dreaming. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Just, it's... Say that again?
I was going to say, but in a positive tone, like, most people would be like, keep dreaming.
No, in a positive tone, man.
Yeah.
That's why, we all have an inner dreamer, man. And we let it shine when we were young. And then as we grew up, people told us to tone it down and to sit in chairs and to raise our hands and get in line. And that slowly started to eat away at our inner child. So to me, it's always about keeping that open and keeping it going.
I'm really pumped that you're talking a lot about the inner child. I think that's, it's something we all sort of let go at some point because we're told we have to grow up, and we gotta assume these roles as an adult. But there's a great, and I'll put this link in the show notes. Of course, with everything else that Tommy and I have talked about, books, the commencement speech from, I don't remember, he was a General
McRaven,
yeah.
University of Texas.
Yeah. I'll put that in the show notes as well. You can get all that at sidequestfitness.com/Tommy Baker, TOMMY BAKER. The show notes, so you can look at all of this and listen to some of this stuff. But there's a great, Tim Ferriss did a podcast with a spoken word artist, and Tommy, I haven't cried that hard in a very, very long time. And the entire thing was just like, the guy starts out and he's like, I am awesome. And it's this whole thing about like discovering how awesome you are and like the troubles you go through and the pain you go through, but how all of that in the end just makes you more awesome. And it's just like, it blew me away, but it was so moving because even in it, he was like, keep dreaming, keep going, stay with this inner child. Everything you've wanted as a kid, you can continue to get. Don't let that die.
And I want to listen to that. And it's huge, man. And I feel like, people hit, maybe they hit 30 years old and they're like, now I'm going to be a complete grown up. And it's like, dude, Elon Musk and all these people that are creating ridiculous things in the world, they're not doing that because they grew up. They're doing that. Peter Diamandis from Bold, they're doing that because they had these dreams when they were kids, these childhood dreams when they were 9 years old about going to space. And now they're 50 years old and now they're making those a reality. So for anyone out there, take some time for yourself and remind yourself of the child that's within you and use that, just to touch on that every day for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes and see what that does for you.
Yeah. All right. So a couple more that I had that I wanted to ask. As I said, you're a very inspirational person. You are so full of energy, and I'm inspired by a lot of the things that you put up every day. And in a few of your posts, you've talked about fear. So how do you conquer fear each day?
Totally, man. I mean, the thing about fear is the only way to conquer it is to acknowledge it and then take action regardless of it, right? So fear, people talk about being fearless and all this stuff, and everybody has fears. Every single person has fears. It's just there's some people that like I said before, the thoughts, emotions, and moods can hold some people back. And they'll listen to the fear, and they'll acknowledge the fear. The fear is real when fear is just an imagined movie that hasn't happened yet. And then other people will take action in spite of fear. And as Grant Cardone says, fear's favorite food is time. So it's like when you see that cute chick at the coffee shop, and you take 10 minutes to say hi. Well, in those 10 minutes, you're going to come up with every damn excuse to not say hi. Right, and it's the same thing in every other area of life. Like if you don't jump on the chance when it's presented to you, you're gonna rationalize and find ways to treat the fear as real. So just take action, and that will obliterate fear.
I like it. I just had this envision of a bazooka blowing up fear, or as I said on Facebook, when I punch fear in the face.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Just punch it right in the face. I had a professor in college who said this one day, and it has stuck with me since. We were talking about like ancient Greece or something, and sort of how plays are written in that point. And he was like, a lot of ancient Greece, a lot of how they felt, everyone talked about fate. But so many of the great people in ancient Greece just stood there as if they were a mouse, and a hawk was coming down at them, and fate was their talons, and they were just standing there with their middle finger up in the air going, fuck you, come at me.
I love it.
And that sort of mental thing of like, you know what? Fear is that hawk, come at me. Come at me. I'm going to take you on and punch you in the face. No matter what. So
I love it, man. I mean, starting the podcast, I had fears. I was like, shit, man, like, what if I put myself out there? What if it's horrible? What if people don't, there's fears for everything. Starting a new fitness program. How many people have fears around that? Feelings of self-worth, or I can't do it, or I can't be fit, or fears about what other people are going to think. And again, the only thing that will, have you realize that all that is BS is by actually moving forward and choosing to take action.
Yeah. All right. So little tweak of a question, that you had written some things about asking better questions, and immediately my brain was like, oh, I'm going to ask this. And then it tweaked to a better question.
I like that.
As I was reading through it. So what's the most transformative thing you've done lately?
Ooh, good, really good question. I got to say, man, I have to say it has been launching the podcast, because that has been a vehicle for my own self-growth. It's been a vehicle in putting myself out there. It's been a vehicle in finding something that I knew I would like it, but fuck, I just love it, man. When I'm behind that mic, it's like nothing else matters in life at that moment. It's like this flow experience, like this real experience. So that project and launching that and making that a reality has been my most recent transformative, powerful thing that I've done.
I like to hear that. I agree. In sort of launching, not to take away from the power of what you've done, but I agree that it was the same way for me. It was transformative. Yeah. I was at a point, and I've spoken about this. I sort of wrote about it. I was at a point where if I did not do something creative, I knew I was about to do something destructive.
Wow, that's powerful, dude.
And I didn't care if people listened. And even though I looked at the stats, I was like, I don't care. I'm doing this for me. And I think this venture and being an entrepreneur has been more about me than anything, and knowing that I could do it. And that now, I put this piece up today about, dreaming that I could be Michael Jordan, but I never wanted to put in the work. And now I want to do nothing but put in the work, because I don't want to die on my deathbed thinking, I wish. I would rather die being like, I fucking did.
Hell yeah, man. I love that. That's a great reframe and share, man. Thank you for that.
All right. So last question. I did steal this from old Timmy Ferriss. So someday maybe I'll be like, thank you, but it's a great question. If you could have dinner with anyone in history, who would you have dinner with?
Wow, that is absolutely epic question. Man, I gotta say a guy we already mentioned, just because his book Meditations changed my life. So it would be Marcus Aurelius, it would be a very, very interesting dinner. But Meditations is a text that to me changed my life, and I can't imagine sitting down with that dude. And I don't know what we would eat back then, but I'm sure it would be epic, and the conversation would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. His writing actually inspired my wedding vows. It's and I had a conversation at my wedding with a friend of mine, and he was like, the thing about Aurelius is that, it was his journal. He never intended. And I think if we were to all sit down at dinner with him, he would be like, guys, that was my journal. And I don't really understand, sort of like when it started and I mentioned, people being inspired, like I'm still sort of like taken aback by it. I think Aurelius might be a little like, all right, wait a minute, hold on. There's like millions of you from my private journal. Like those were just ramblings. They were just ramblings.
It's hilarious. But I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, dude.
Yeah. I wonder if he would do the same. But yeah, he
classic.
His writing, it's like you could take out Roman, put in American, put in Colombian, whatever, sure. and I think it still applies to the day. So
it's universal, man. It's universal and transcends the laws of space and time. That means it'll always be relevant.
Yep. All right, Tommy, I've had a great time chatting with you, getting to catch up, and then talk about some emo bands and talk about punching fear in the face and inspiration, sort of where you derive your power from with your inner child. So if people want to know more about you, where can they find you online?
Hell yeah, man. Pretty simple. TommyBakerFitness.com. That's where I do my blog. I got my podcast up there as well. And all my content and stuff can be found on there.
Awesome. Well, guys, I have had a few people on who've had podcasts, and I don't have a problem pitching and promoting other podcasts that are fantastic. And I have to say this, Tommy's is awesome. Like I said, there were a few guests that I was like, ooh, I want to get that person on it. I'm going to put them on my list. And the next thing I know, Tommy just like Hadoukens right up behind me and grabs it. But they're fantastic guests. The material that they go over, the things that they talk about are powerful. You hear a lot about how people have overcome their issues, how they've started business, how they came from nothing. I mean, nothing. Quit their jobs and establish something great and are now living awesome, amazing lives, and that you too can have that power as long as you resist being average, because fuck mediocrity. Punch mediocrity in the face, then kick it in the balls and push it over the edge of the cliff.
Epic, man. That's pumping me up. I got to go do some push-ups or something in a few minutes.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, check out Resist Average on iTunes, over at TommyBakerFitness.com as well. Check out Tommy on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'll have all those links in the show notes as well. SideQuestFitness.com/Tommy Baker. Tommy, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. It was a blast.